Welcome to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. I'm Bill Bischoff, FEMA Region 6 Community Preparedness Officer, and we're going to be talking about community preparedness matters that affect Region 6 states and tribal nations, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Texas, and the tribal nations therein. We hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to the hashtag R6 Prepares podcast. Dr. Clayton McCook, out of Oklahoma. You are the winner of the 2021 Region 6 Community Preparedness Award. This is the first time for the Exceptional Service Award. Exceptional service during COVID-19. So we want to thank you for being on today and just ask you a few questions about what your service was that wound up with you winning that award. So first off, thank you. Where are you right now?
I'm at my house in Edmond, Oklahoma, just north of Oklahoma City.
All right. And as you and I were talking before we started recording, you are not an emergency manager. A lot of times we've had emergency management folks who are the winners of our Community Preparedness Awards. We've had the Region 6 Community Preparedness Awards as administered through the Region 6 Community Preparedness Working Group. And that's folks from Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Texas, all who, do the submissions, the selection. So you're kind of vetted across a whole region. But this is the first time to have someone outside of the emergency management profession. Can you tell us what you do?
Sure. My day job is I'm an equine veterinarian. I actually specialize in racehorse medicine, so I spend a good chunk of my time at the racetrack. I work on running quarter horses, so those are the sprinters of the racehorse world. And so I spend quite a bit of time at Remington Park here in Oklahoma City during our spring quarter horse meet. And then my family and I spend our summers out in Ruidoso Downs, New Mexico, beautiful little mountain town where we escape the heat of Oklahoma and care for those great athletes out there.
I've been there and loved that area. Yes, sir. Well, you were nominated by the Oklahoma City or Oklahoma Medical Reserve Corps for your service at the vaccination sites, for the COVID vaccination site. So if you will, how'd you get involved there? What happened?
Sure. So I actually have quite a bit of history with the Oklahoma Medical Reserve Corps. Back in 2013, in May of 2013, you may remember we had a really awful tornado hit Moore, Oklahoma. I was at EF5, and it actually did considerable damage to a lot of horse properties, including a equine training center. And unfortunately, lots of horses were killed and injured. And so I found myself, like a lot of other private practice veterinarians and community volunteers, kind of out in the middle of all of that. And it was a very difficult experience for me and for those volunteers. And so out of that experience, we recognized that there was a need for large animal emergency response here in Oklahoma. They did a really great job on the small animal side, but there just wasn't as much organization and cohesion on the large animal side. And so a group of friends and volunteers of mine got together in the summer of 2013, and we formed the Oklahoma Large Animal First Responders Organization. And I was a little leery about doing this, as a veterinarian, sort of staking my reputation on these types of organizations, because you got to be really careful how you do this kind of work. And so actually the first organization that we went and met with was Oklahoma Medical Reserve Corps. And I got really wonderful feedback and support from that organization. And so fast forward to our current times, we're actually a member of the State Animal Response Team, and we're under the umbrella of the Oklahoma Medical Reserve Corps. And so anytime my team and I deploy out into the field in the aftermath of a tornado or fire or flood or any other disaster involving large animals, then it's under the auspices of the Medical Reserve Corps. So all that being said, it's an organization that I'm very actively involved in on that end, and it's very near and dear to my heart.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
when the time comes, and when the rest of us are still holed up, or many people in, I would say, emergency management are still trying to get their heads around how to help, and the volunteer end, trying to get their heads around how to help. You got the opportunity to step up. How did that go?
Well, are you talking about it in terms of the vaccine experience?
Yes, sir.
For me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, it all kind of fell into place. I'm typically really busy in the spring and summer and don't have a lot of opportunity to give a lot of volunteer time, but my off season is in the winter time. And so, in December of 2020, as the vaccine was approved, initially the Pfizer and then the Moderna vaccines received their EUAs, the Medical Reserve Corps put out a call for potential volunteers, and they actually had a Zoom call talking about the vaccination pods that they would be setting up. And I was very interested and frankly, just a little curious about how that would look. And so I joined that initial Zoom call in December, and the first opportunity was on the 17th of December, 2020. And it was actually in a parking garage at one of the hospitals here in Oklahoma City. And so I volunteered that day. It was a cold morning, but it was just a really special experience. And it really, I don't think I was prepared for emotionally just how special that would be. Just being with all the other Medical Reserve Corps volunteers and being with all the nurses and the staff from the Oklahoma City County Department of Health, and seeing those initial folks receive their vaccine. Those were all doctors and nurses and EMTs and the folks that have really been on the front lines in the previous, almost year fighting COVID-19, and just to see the relief in their faces and to just be a small part of that, and at that point I was just doing paperwork and assisting the nurses and just helping out in any way that I could, sort of in the spirit of the Medical Reserve Corps, just kind of jumping in and being a part of that. And I got to tell you, Bill, I was hooked from watching that very first shot go in the arm. I mean, like I said, I got a little emotional, and it's just something that I really wanted to be a part of. I just felt like it really, motivated me to want to give back even more. And like one of the nurses said, my friend Stacy, she held up the Pfizer vaccine that first day and she said, this is hope in a vial. And, it really, like I said, it really inspired me to want to be a part of that.
What were the reactions that you were getting from people going through? And I'm just empathizing for a moment, because I remember when it came my time, and I got to go out here at Denton Motor Speedway. So it was the first time to go out there. And I just remember, and I've since, I went through myself, and then I went through with my wife. And most recently, we've gone through with our soon to be 8-year-old. But every time there's this feeling of thank you, thank you, thank you, the desire to hug, the desire to shake hands. And it's not really a time where people feel comfortable hugging and shaking hands, but it was that sort of relief and gratitude for me and my family. Is that something you encountered the entire time, or what did you encounter?
100%. Initially, like I said, with the docs and the nurses and the folks that were, that work in healthcare, they were the initial wave that we vaccinated. And so, seeing the relief on their face and just hearing them talk about how that would lessen their fear of getting sick themselves or bringing COVID home to their family members, and allow them to continue to do the heroic work that they had been doing. And then as we transitioned into the general public, and like most states, we targeted our senior population first. And it was just so eye-opening to be a part of that. And as a veterinarian, I am considered an essential worker. And so I never missed any time at work. Because of COVID-19, we had continuation of racing, thankfully, in Oklahoma. And so I never stayed home like my family did, and certainly like my parents and their generation did. And so, particularly talking with a lot of the seniors who hadn't been out of the house, in some cases in almost a year, hadn't seen their grandchildren, hadn't hugged their grandbabies. And I went almost a year without hugging my mom and dad. And so when they got their shots, just to be able to hug them again was just such a huge relief. And so to be a part of that, with our seniors, with that just special population, and just, I doing the paperwork and sitting alongside the nurses initially, I really got an opportunity to talk to a lot of those folks. And so I got to hear some of their stories and learn about their pasts and where they live and how they grew up. And so, just getting to be around that was just so inspiring and so wonderful.
Absolutely. Well, and so you started out, I would say, kind of on the grunt end, it sounded like, and just helping people find the right lines, and then wound up being a staging manager at another time. And then eventually you were the one that was able to put, and if I'm not mistaken, you're the first equine vet to administer the vaccine in Oklahoma, maybe other places, but is that your understanding as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I was the first. I know that there were a lot of my colleagues that participated in this, but I was sure honored to be one of them. And like you say, I mean, I just really tried to honor the spirit of the Medical Reserve Corps initially. And, my attitude was I was there to help. And whatever that meant at that moment, it didn't, if I needed to help register people, or if I needed to be outside doing traffic control, or if I needed to, offer a sweet lady my arm so that she could walk down the hallway or whatever. It didn't really matter to me. And that was what I always tried to do, with our incident commanders and with our other staging liaisons, is just say, hey, you plug me in where you need me. Wherever there's a need that I can fill, I want to be there. And I kind of joked early on, and I really was joking. I mean, I really didn't have any notion of actually administering the vaccine when I started. That wasn't ever my motivation. I never really expected that. I was perfectly content doing paperwork and filling out vaccine cards and all the things that I did. But, I did joke early on with some of the folks at the health department, say, I give a lot of shots, and my patients typically weigh 1,200 pounds. I can do this if you guys really need me, because I really noticed that the nurses were quickly getting tired. I mean, that's what folks don't, I don't know if the general public realizes just how hard our health department staff and all the volunteers and all the people who were administering vaccines, especially initially. I mean, we were putting in 12, 14, 16-hour days. And it was exhausting. And so my thought was, well, if I could give a nurse a break and I could give some shots, then maybe that would just help out. And so, like I said, initially it was almost sort of tongue in cheek. And then, I don't know, a month or so in, maybe 6 weeks in, they said, hey, are you really serious about giving shots? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And they said, well, we're developing the protocols right now. And I said, well, put me in, coach. I'll be ready. And so I just went in for a regularly scheduled volunteer shift one day at the health department, and they said, are you ready? And I said, yeah, I'm ready. And they said, well, today's the day. And so it was actually me and another veterinarian, a small animal colleague of mine that did the shots that day the first time. And it was really special. It was really special to do that. And, it was funny. I typically didn't really advertise that I'm an equine veterinarian, because I wanted people to be comfortable and I didn't want to, make a big deal out of it. But there were so many times where, especially like if people would comment on my technique and give me a compliment, say, hey, that didn't really hurt. You did a really good job. And I'd say, yeah, can I tell you a little secret here? You just got your shot from a equine veterinarian. And 100% of the people were like, oh, that's so cool. You did great. And so I never really, had anybody really, upset by that or anything. It went really well. There was one lady, a story I'll share with you, just such a sweet lady. And so, she sits down at my table and I start going over the questionnaire and everything, getting ready. And so she says, are you a nurse? And I said, no, ma'am. And she said, kind of looks at me sideways and says, well, what are you? And I said, I'm a doctor. Well, then she really looks at me sideways and she said, what kind of doctor are you? And I said, well, I'm a veterinarian. I'm an equine veterinarian. And I thought, man, this is about to go one of two ways here. And so she just leans back and she says, oh, that is so cool. I have horses. I love my veterinarian. I think it's the neatest thing. I'm about to get my shot from an equine veterinarian. And so I gave her a shot. It went really well, and she was really happy. So it was neat. It was
I was going to say, it's horse country is all around us, and I think there are many that think the same way. They'd be perfectly at home with the idea of a equine vet giving them the shot. Absolutely.
You bet.
So you started with the Oklahoma Medical Reserve Corps years ago. You have other veterinary partners or friends that have since become involved. Are more of them becoming involved as your story is shared with them?
Yes, I think so for sure. And our organization, we require all of our members. And if you want to volunteer with the Oklahoma Large Animal First Responders, you have to be a credentialed member of the Oklahoma Medical Reserve Corps. And so, as I did the vaccine pods, I actually did a lot of social media posts about my experience. And so, several of our members got out into their communities, and our vice president and public information officer, he and his wife were very involved. They live down in Wynnewood. And so Joss and Kathy participated quite a bit in the vaccine pods down in their neck of the woods and put in a lot of hours as well. And so, quite a few people did, and quite a few of my veterinary colleagues did. And, I heard from people all over. I was just talking to a young lady the other day that lives in Washington, D.C., and I had no idea. She's a non-practicing nurse. And she said, I read your posts about your volunteer experience, and I went and joined the Medical Reserve Corps here in D.C. And so, lots of other friends around the country seem to read those posts and hear this story and say, you know what, I want to be a part of that too. And so I think they did. And that was really rewarding.
Excellent. Well, and we'll put a place in the description here where folks that want to volunteer can go to the Oklahoma Medical Reserve Corps and sign up. So
that's great.
That anything else?
No, I just, I appreciate the honor. It's humbling. I don't know that it's, completely deserved, because there were so many people that volunteered hours like I did. And there were so many people that, worked alongside me. And I really want to give a special shout out to the nurses and the staff at the Oklahoma City County Health Department. They really are heroes, and they really, and again, I don't think the public has any idea the amount of commitment that it took from those folks, and the amount of hours that they put in, and just how exhausted they were every day, but they just kept pushing, and they're just such servants to their community. And they just have, none of them make enough money, but their work is so important, and public health is just such an important aspect of our society. And it just really made me appreciate that. It made me appreciate all the people that put so much time, and it's that quiet work that doesn't really get much attention or, any credibility, but that's the work that really makes a difference in people's lives. So, huge shout out to them, huge appreciation for all that they do every day, not just in the middle of a pandemic, but every day, with childhood immunizations and nutrition programs and all the things that city and county and state health departments do on a daily basis to keep us all healthy.
Well, I think you're emblematic of that. And I think you are honoring them and just the acceptance of this award. So thank you for all you do. Now, I
do want to say one other thing, Bill. I want to give a special credibility to my wife, Cindy, who's just a really amazing woman. And I was gone about every day, Monday through Friday, from December all the way into February. And that's typically the time of year when I'm home with my family. That's our off season. And I usually get a break and, try to spend as much time with the kids and my wife as possible. And I was gone doing the volunteer stuff just about, like I said, every day. And she really took one for the team. And it was hard on her taking care of the kids. The kids were home from school at the time, so they were doing online school and all that fun stuff. And her being by my side and supporting me and being willing to allow me to go out into the community and do that is what made it all possible. Because if I didn't have Cindy, there's no way I could have put in those kind of hours. And so special love and admiration to my wife and my much better half.
Yeah, you were the hero for the community. She is the hero for the family. The one that
100%.
Going.
That's
absolutely. Right. I get it.
Yeah.
I have one of those here.
Yeah.
A couple other questions. Did you, with all this work with humans, did you ever think about doing that growing up, or were you just automatically led into the world of equine veterinarian?
You know, it's interesting you say that. I thought about it when I was a kid. My grandfather, the late Dr. David V. Haviff, was actually a world-renowned breast cancer surgeon. He was on the faculty at Columbia University in New York City and was really one of my heroes, one of my personal heroes, because he was a real-life hero. He was a World War II veteran and member of the 101st Airborne Division and, won the Bronze Star. And his story is pretty remarkable. And so his influence on me, started obviously at a really young age. So my love of horses also started at a really young age. I grew up on a farm. And so it always just made sense to me that I liked medicine because of my grandfather, but I also really love horses. And so being an equine vet was a really natural fit for me. And I say it, not jokingly, I every day I get to live my dream. I'm doing what I believe I was put here to do. And someday I think I'm going to be really good at it. It takes a lot of work, but I really, I love being it. But I do have to say that this experience, particularly when I got to the point of administering shots, that's the first time I really looked back and thought, I think I could have been a physician in another life and another time. And that just wasn't what was in God's plan for me. I'm right where I need to be, but it definitely made me think, I could have done that. But I like to think that, this little moment in time, and this is something that my grandfather and my grandmother were smiling down on me and made them proud.
I suspect they were. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to visit with us today. Thank you so much for doing what you've done, what you continue to do. And I love the way you recognize those around you for the inspiration they are to you. So thank you. This year's exceptional service during COVID Award, Region 6 Community Preparedness Award winner, Dr. Clayton McCook. Thank you again, and we hope to see you down the line.
Thank you, Bill. Take care.
That about does it for this episode. We'd like to thank Laura Brown from Arkansas Tech University's Emergency Management Program for her assistance editing this podcast. And we'd like you, the listener, to give us a like if you're so inclined, and share us with somebody else that might want to help prepare their community. Until next time, take care of you and yours.